Welcome everybody. Today I want to talk to you about what makes a good gaming machine and what you need to look out for to get the best experience out of a gaming machine in terms of PC or a console. And it's a quick guide just to make sure that you're aware of all the facts before you dedicate yourself into one route or the other. And it all comes down to the budget. And I'd like to point out a couple of things first of all. Now, budget is the most important thing. And I would personally set myself up for about £500. Then, when you set in a target of £500, what can you really get for £500? The problem is, with £500, you can quite easily get yourself an Xbox, the top of the range Xbox, which is one thing you do need to consider with the Xbox, that you need to get a good monitor to play on. And this is where everyone sort of goes wrong. Now, you could have a £2,000 computer or any console with a very good refresh rate of gaming, but if you do not have the right monitor, you will basically not be it won't be as good experience as you would like. So there are a few things to consider when you're doing this. First thing, wherever you're living, you're going to have an internet connection to play online, and you need to make sure you've got a good internet with a good ping. Okay, that's one thing you've got to know, and it also depends on where the server for the game is. They'll make the difference. They'll help you, and you won't get that much of a laggy game, or you won't get a lot of sponges if you've got a good internet connection. Although you could be the one that's sponging because you've got good internet connection. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to tell you is use the technology to your advantage to get the best gaming experience that you can get. Now, that leaves me with a couple more things to say about this. I personally have two machines. One I dedicate for more gaming and more fun activities, which is my living room, and that gets connected to a 32-inch 165 Hz monitor. Also, there's a TV there which I connected to if I need to for bigger screen. Now this here, I've got a 43-inch monitor here, or it's not a monitor, sorry, it's a TV which I'm using as a monitor with my work PC that's connected to it. Now the difference is, this is where you can learn from my mistakes. The difference is, with a bigger screen, you need to set your resolution slightly higher to make it look nicer. And you get a better look of the game, and you get a better experience. Now with this TV, this is only a 60 Hz TV, and one thing that all the YouTube doesn't mention is they show you amazing machines that they've built and they connect to an amazing monitor. What they don't tell you is what is a suitable monitor to use, because if you've got a 60 Hz monitor, you've got to drop your resolution 720p to get yourself anything above 60 frame per second. And that's where you need to get a higher frame per second to give you the best experience in gaming, especially when it comes to shooting games where you need to be more accurate on your aiming, and that's why the refresh rate will help you a bit more. Now, in my experience, as I said, with this 60 Hz TV in a good resolution above 1080p, so I would say this is a 2K, 2000 something on the settings. So if I show you what I've got it set on here, and just quite easily go to there, and let's see if I can open it up. Now this is important to know what resolution you've got to set on. So mine's set to it says 2K on here, basically 3840 by 2160, and the maximum I can get is 60 Hz on there. If I was to drop that down to 1080p, I can get 120 Hz. That would give me 120 frame per second, and that's how you decide your gaming experience. Is you need to get a good monitor to start off with, as well as a good machine to play on. Now when it comes to machine, there's two things to factor in. One being, I rather you spend, especially for gaming, on a good GPU, and you can go for a budget PC as long as you've got your good GPU inside it. And this is what I'm going to give you advice on. Now, starting with, your GPU should be no lower if you go for NVIDIA. I'm not that familiar with AMD, I'm afraid, so I'll just tell you about the NVIDIA. If you go for NVIDIA, which is a better graphics card in my opinion, I recommend that you go for anything let me show you some of the graphics cards that they've got on here, and you'll know straight away. I recommend that you go for 1660 Super and above in terms of graphics card. And that's where you'll get the most out of. Anything above that will be more than sufficient for your gaming. You can go for the 1050 Ti's with 4 gig. That will do the job for your basic Minecrafts and other basic games. But anything for 1660 or 1060 and above with a bit of extra RAM memory would be perfect for your gaming. So let's start from the beginning of what you're going to need for a PC gamers. First, you're going to need a basic machine. That doesn't mean to say you need to spend anything more than £300 on a gaming machine, just a machine without the GPU. Invest in a good GPU. And as I said, anything above 1650 is standard starting price of a gaming with a 4 GB of memory, which is okay. But I personally think you should go for a bit higher. You should go for either 1660 Super or 1660 Ti, and then you can basically go for 2060 is more. You're starting on a mid-range there, and then 3060 is another mid-range. 60 Ti is better, and 3070, that's where you're going for the top quality graphics card. These are the stuff I just this is on CCL computers. I'm just ticking the ones that I like, and on this straight away I can see 1660 Ti is £449. Because it's got a single fan, I'd rather go for the double fan. So the next one on there is 1660 Super, which is £469, and then £479 for a Zeus 1660 Super as well. So any of those will be more than sufficient for your gaming. And the next thing to consider is basically the gaming part of the thing is the machine itself. I recommend i3. The latest i3 is perfectly fine, but last generation i5 is even better. And if you're going for the AMD side of things, Ryzen 5, starting from Ryzen 5 is perfectly fine. If I look on here straight away, components, AMD CPUs. So you've got Ryzen 5 5600 is the latest one, or you can go for the Ryzen 7 38, the last generation one. Gen 2 is perfectly fine as well, but they are a lot more expensive than your Intel. That's the only reason I'm telling you to go for Intel, because of the price itself. And it's not that much of a difference, and that you won't be losing that much in experience as well. So now that you've got your PC sorted out in terms of what you should go for, the RAM, anything above 8 gig of RAM is sufficient, but 16 is standard nowadays. You've got to remember that. Motherboard wise, it depends if you want to go for wireless. I'd rather you go for wired connection. So therefore just choose a motherboard that's suitable enough to run your RAMs and run your GPU. Now when it comes to GPU, you've got generation 4 or generation 3. So Gen 3 is perfectly fine, and most of the GTX 1650, 1660 Super and 1060, 1080s are Gen 3. If you go a bit higher, it goes into like 2060 onward, I think. RTX 2060 onward, some of them will be Gen 4 on the motherboard. So that's, you got to consider those. But anyway, I'm just giving the basic understanding of what you really need to get a good gaming experience. So straight away, I'll tell you this. Get a basic PC that's worth about £300. It shouldn't cost any more than £350, excluding all the accessories like fans and stuff. So you can build that yourself quite easily. £350, keep the budget. The rest is basically on your graphics card. Get the best graphics card in your budget that you can get. And then you basically, the main thing you need to consider is a monitor. So any monitor that is 144 Hz and more will be more than sufficient for your gaming, and you get the best experience with that. So that's what I'm going to tell you. You're going to make sure you've got the right graphics card with the right monitor. And this is where it gets complicated, because internet will make the biggest difference as well for your gaming, depending on what sort of pings you're getting on your internet. So when you're buying your gaming and you want to have a good experience, as I say, consider all those factors before you decide. Now, you could also spend the same amount of money to get the top of the range Xbox, and that will do the job with a good monitor, will save you a lot of time and effort, and they'll be perfectly fine for you. But you just don't get the versatile sort of, you can't use the machine to do your homework or do anything else. So if you've got a computer, you've got more options as well. And one thing I've noticed that people would sort of agree to, computer gaming with a keyboard and mouse is much better and faster than Xbox. And there's always a rivals between the two. And you'll see on the conversation, you'll be chatting to people in the game. Oh, you're just a PC player, blah, blah, blah. Well, at the end of the day, if the technology helps you to get better, why not? That's what I would recommend. If you're going for a PC direction, get yourself a box standard machine. And the last option is, if you look around at second-hand ones, you can probably pick up a good PC. Just make sure you just get a good graphics card with it. And that will be probably set you back £400 altogether with a good graphics card. And as I said, stick with GTX 1660 and above, okay? And anything above that will be perfectly fine in terms of graphics card if you're even going for second-hand ones. Failing that, just make yourself a bog standard machine with even Ryzen 3, the latest. Ryzen 3 will be fine, but you're spending a lot more money on Ryzen CPUs, and motherboards are a bit more expensive as well. So I recommend you go for the Intel route. You get a better money for what you're getting. And yeah, so these are the advice I can tell you. But the last thing you got to remember is you need to get yourself a good monitor, and that's another cost that you've got to bear in when it comes to gaming. And sometimes it's not worth it, because after you spend so much money, you'll be ending up spending up about £700 starting price on a brand new machine. You might as well get yourself an Xbox, the latest one, and that will do the job as well. But it all depends on what your choices are and what you want to use your machine for. Anyway, I had a long conversation there, but as I said, a lot of people on YouTube do not mention that you need a good monitor. You could spend £10,000 on a machine, but if you've got a box standard monitor, it won't do you any good. So 3 factors. Just to conclude in, good graphics card with a basic PC with just about enough RAM should be more than enough to do your gaming. And get yourself, spend more money on your graphics card and your monitor over anything else. And that's where they go wrong, because as I said, good monitor will give you good refresh rate. So just to tell you about the monitor itself, 60 Hz on a good resolution will give you 60 frames per second. 120 Hz or 144 normally goes up to normally, they'll give you 144 frames per second. 165 Hz, as I've got on my monitor, gives me maximum frame rate on a standard good quality resolution of 1440p, 165 Hz, frame per second on my graphics card. So I spend a lot more money on my graphics card. So and I've got 2060 here on this machine, RTX, and because of the TV 60 Hz, I can only get 60 frame per second. So there you go, guys. I know it's a long conversation I'm having here, but just bear in mind what you should be looking for when you're getting a machine. Internet connection, good graphics card, and a good monitor is the important bit that a lot of people miss out on when building your machine. So good monitor is important too. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to speak to you guys soon.